Hello, and welcome to this special episode where we'll take a closer look at the fascinating, yet sometimes unsettling, lives of the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. If you've been searching for a calm, engaging, and thought provoking historical tale to relax with, you're in exactly the right place. Before we dive into the past, I'd love to hear from you. Where in the world are you tuning in from? And is it morning, afternoon, or late at night, where you are right now? Drop a comment and say hi. I always enjoy knowing who's out there listening. And if you enjoy relaxing, educational storytelling like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. All right, let's set the scene. Picture endless golden deserts stretching as far as the eye can see, fertile valleys nourished by the Nile, and towering temples and tombs rising dramatically against the bright blue Egyptian sky. This was a civilization that thrived for more than 3,000 years, leaving behind an extraordinary legacy that still captures imaginations today. At the very center of it all stood the pharaohs, the godlike rulers whose wealth, influence, and authority shaped the destiny of their people. To many, they appeared almost untouchable, surrounded by opulence and reverence. Yet, behind the dazzling image of glory and divine power, their lives were often marked by obsession, rivalry, and unsettling customs that might shock us even now. In this journey, we'll peel back the curtain and step into their world. You'll see how these rulers lived inside their magnificent palaces, how their family ties often led to intense rivalries, and how deeply they believed in their own divine status. We'll also uncover their obsession with death and the afterlife, a fixation so strong it inspired monumental tombs, elaborate temples, and at times disturbing practices like human sacrifice. As we move through the story, we'll meet towering figures such as Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramses II. Along the way, we'll also touch on the mysteries archaeologists are still piecing together about their reigns. It's a saga filled with power, magic, ambition, and legacies that have fascinated the world for centuries. So go ahead, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let the echoes of ancient Egypt carry you back through time. But before we fully immerse ourselves in the world of the pharaohs, let's take a step back and look at Egyptian civilization at its peak. From around 3100 BCE until 30 BCE, Egypt stood as one of humanity's earliest and longest-lasting civilizations. It all began when King Narmer, sometimes called Menes, united the scattered tribes along the fertile Nile Valley into one kingdom. By harnessing the rich farmlands created by the river's yearly floods, Egypt launched an agricultural revolution that would be admired across the ancient world. Over the centuries, this kingdom grew into a cultural and economic powerhouse. Its borders stretched from the Mediterranean coast deep into Nubia in the south. Pharaohs oversaw a centralized state supported by a sophisticated bureaucracy, pioneering technologies like the ox-drawn plow and the sailboat, and a cultural heritage rich with art, literature, and breathtaking architecture. The Egyptians also developed one of the earliest writing systems, hieroglyphics, along with a solar calendar of 365 days that precisely tracked the Nile's annual floods. But perhaps their most unforgettable achievements were the monumental structures they left behind, monuments so massive and enduring that they still inspire awe thousands of years later. The towering pyramids, vast temple complexes, and hidden tombs carved deep into cliff sides still stand as breathtaking reminders of Egypt's past. These astonishing feats of engineering weren't just displays of skill and artistry. They were powerful symbols of the pharaoh's divine authority and their unshakable obsession with death and eternity. To them, earthly life was merely the opening act before an everlasting existence, one that had to be rich, glorious, and perfectly prepared. No expense, no resource, and no human effort was considered too great when it came to securing their peace of forever. At the very heart of this civilization stood the pharaohs themselves. Seen as living gods, they ruled as the earthly form of Horus, the falcon deity. Their power knew no limits, absolute control over politics, religion, and war. They weren't just rulers, they were guardians of cosmic order. Their responsibility was to maintain balance in the universe, honor the gods through rituals and offerings, and safeguard the prosperity of their people. But with such exalted status came a shadowy side. The pharaohs lived under a rigid and often ruthless system of rituals, superstitions, and obligations. Their marriages were sometimes arranged within the family, designed to keep the royal bloodline pure. When they died, not only treasures, but also loyal servants, and even beloved animals, might accompany them into the tomb. Some pharaohs went so far as to declare themselves divine during their lifetimes, while others engaged in shocking practices like human sacrifice. For all their splendor, their lives were often tinged with darkness as much as with light. So, as we step into this world of God Kings, prepare yourself. What we're about to explore is not only grand and captivating, but also unsettling and deeply complex. Together, we'll uncover the personal lives and legacies of some of the most famous rulers history has ever known. Now, let's bring the scene to life. Picture a day in the reign of a powerful pharaoh during Egypt's New Kingdom, around 1500 BCE. Dawn breaks softly over the gleaming white limestone walls of his grand palace at Thebes. The hush of early morning is filled with the delicate notes of blind musicians greeting the sunrise. Barefoot servants move silently through torchlit corridors, balancing trays of food to prepare the royal breakfast. In the palace's open courtyards, birds dart between fragrant gardens and bubbling fountains, while tamed animals, baboons and even lion cubs, laze in the shade. From his private chambers, the pharaoh steps forward, attended by a team of personal servants who have already spent hours preparing him for the day. His body has been shaved smooth to ward off pests, his eyes lined with striking black coal and shimmering green malachite, and his skin rubbed with scented oils. Around his neck and wrists, gold and electrum glitter in the morning light, and upon his head rests a falcon-shaped crown, signifying his sacred bond with Horus himself. Adorned in this magnificent finery, the living god strides into the day's duties. His first stop, the palace shrine. Here, priests chant hymns as incense curls into the air. Offerings are made to Ra, the sun god, to Osiris, lord of the underworld, and to the pharaoh's own deified ancestors. With his spiritual obligations complete, he turns to matters of state. Seated on a golden throne, the ruler presides over his council. His vizier reads out the business of the day. Border disputes requiring resolution, trade deals waiting for approval, and grand construction projects demanding oversight. Every decision reinforces the pharaoh's authority and further shapes the destiny of Egypt. Although the pharaoh often listened to the advice of his most trusted officials, the ultimate decision in every matter rested solely with him. Each day unfolded in a whirlwind of ceremonies and public displays, carefully crafted to inspire awe among the people and remind them of his divine authority. Picture the king riding through the city in a dazzling chariot, greeted by a roaring tide of cheers as he scatters gold and grain among his grateful subjects. Later, he presides over the sacred founding of a new temple, driving the very first peg with a golden mallet while priests chant blessings to consecrate the holy ground. Yet, beneath all this splendor, lay a world shaped by superstition and ritual. Every movement carried hidden meaning. The pharaoh always stepped into a room with his right foot first, believing it warded off evil spirits. He ate with his left hand, only reserving his right for communion with the gods. And under no circumstances could his shadow touch a priest or a statue of a deity, for fear of angering the gods and unleashing catastrophe upon the land. As the blazing sun of Ra dipped toward the western horizon, the king withdrew to his private chambers. Here, in the fleeting calm before the evening banquet, he found a brief moment of rest. Later, music filled the halls, as dancers moved gracefully into the sounds of harps and lyres. The pharaoh reclined with a golden cup of sweet date wine, engaging his advisors in thoughtful discussions about religion and the mysteries of the universe. But even in these moments of pleasure, death was never far from his thoughts. For the pharaoh understood that no matter how powerful or godlike his earthly existence seemed, it was only temporary, a short dream before the eternal life awaiting him in the field of reeds. It was this belief that drove him to pour immense wealth and labor into building his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, a hidden necropolis where he planned to rule forever in splendor. Still, immortality could wait. First, he had to contend with the treacherous realities of life under the double crown, and nowhere were those dangers more present than within his own palace walls. From the moment he took the throne, the pharaoh was expected to secure the future by producing a male heir. Yet the royal household was a nest of rivalry and ambition. Marriages within the family, siblings wed to siblings, even unions between parents and children were meant to preserve the bloodline's purity, but they also fueled dangerous rivalries, plots, and betrayals. The great royal wife, often a half-sister, might conspire with priests and courtiers to ensure her son's succession over another prince. Egyptian history is filled with tales of scheming queens, ambitious princes, and battles for the throne fought behind palace doors. Take, for example, the extraordinary case of Hatshepsut, a woman who defied convention and ruled as pharaoh for over 2 decades in the 15th century BCE. Originally a regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III, she gradually consolidated power, adopting the symbols of kingship and even having herself depicted with the traditional false beard of a male ruler. Or consider the notorious Akhenaten, often called the heretic king. He shocked his people by overturning centuries of religious tradition, declaring the Aten, the sun disk, as the one true god, and banning the worship of Egypt's many other deities. His radical reforms shook the very foundations of Egyptian society. In his fervent devotion to the Aten, Akhenaten went so far as to change his very name, once Amenhotep IV, to reflect his loyalty to the sun disk. He even abandoned the traditional capital, relocating it to a new city carved out of the desert, while striking hard against the powerful priesthood of Amun. His reign, however, became mired in intrigue and conspiracy, and by the time it ended in collapse, his young son, Tutankhamun, was left to restore order and rebuild what had been broken. Yet, perhaps nothing illustrates the darker side of Pharaoh's Aeonic power more starkly than the chilling practice of human sacrifice. Archaeological discoveries have revealed retainer sacrifices in the tombs of early kings, such as Jer and Jet, where scores of servants were killed to accompany their ruler. into the afterlife. Even more unsettling, some rulers, like Pharaoh Aha, were interred not only with their treasures and beloved pets, but also with human remains, including piles of wigs likely shorn from sacrificial victims. Fortunately, this gruesome tradition faded by the close of the Old Kingdom, replaced by more symbolic ways of ensuring a pharaoh's eternal entourage. Still, it stands as a haunting reminder of the vast gulf between the god kings and the ordinary people they commanded. As centuries passed, Egypt's rulers continued to shape the destiny of their land, leaving behind monumental legacies carved in stone and story. Some, like Ramses II, often called Ramses the Great, presided over Egypt during its golden age of prosperity and military might, immortalizing their victories and even their personal romances on the walls of magnificent temples. Others, like the legendary Cleopatra Zavinth, became central players in the high-stakes politics of the Mediterranean world, remembered as much for their charm and cunning as for their political maneuvering. And yet, no pharaoh has gripped the modern imagination quite like the boy king, Tutankhamun. When his nearly untouched tomb was uncovered in 1922, the dazzling treasures inside sent shockwaves around the world. From his gleaming golden death mask to intricately nested coffins and jeweled thrones, the discovery offered an unprecedented glimpse into the wealth, artistry, and spiritual beliefs of ancient Egypt. Practically overnight, a little-known ruler became a global icon. Today, advances in archaeology and science are peeling back even more layers of this ancient world. CT scans and DNA testing have exposed the genetic challenges caused by centuries of royal inbreeding, revealing deformities and illnesses within Tutankhamun's family line. Studies also suggest he suffered from malaria and crippling injuries, likely leading to his untimely death at just 19 years old. Meanwhile, inscriptions and papyri bring to life the dangerous world of palace politics, where foreign brides, ambitious queens, and cunning viziers competed relentlessly for influence. For all the shadows we've uncovered, the sacrifices, conspiracies, and rivalries, the pharaohs still endure as symbols of majesty, innovation, and timeless legacy. For more than 3 millennia, they oversaw a civilization that achieved wonders, from the precise mathematics behind the pyramids to medical knowledge advanced enough to attempt brain surgery, to masterpieces of art and architecture that continue to inspire awe. Their story is not only one of power and mystery, but also of brilliance that echoes across the ages. From the delicate beauty of Nefertiti's limestone bust to the towering presence of the Colossi of Memnon, the art and monuments of ancient Egypt still stir our imaginations. They invite us to wonder about the mysteries of power and to reflect on what it means to chase immortality while living in a world where life is so fragile and fleeting. So, the next time you gaze into the enigmatic face of the Sphinx or marvel at the golden brilliance of Tutankhamun's funerary mask, pause for a moment. Think of the pharaohs who once ruled as gods among men, commanding armies, shaping destinies, and holding the lives of millions in their hands. Their story is one of dazzling triumphs and shocking excess, of awe-inspiring monuments and chilling acts, of immense wealth shadowed by an ever-present fear of death. It is a tale that reminds us of both the heights humanity can reach and the darkness we are capable of. A story of ambition and cruelty, of eternal dreams and mortal limits. And as long as the timeless stones of ancient Egypt endure, those mysteries will continue to whisper across the ages, inviting each new generation to unravel the riddle of the pharaohs all over again. And with that, We've reached the end of this journey into the dazzling yet disturbing world of ancient Egyptian kings. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of one of history's most fascinating civilizations, and that the stories of these legendary rulers have sparked your imagination as you drift into rest. Thank you for spending your time with Boring History, wandering together through the hidden corners of the human past. If you found this journey engaging, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective on the pharaohs and their lasting legacy. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with golden sunlight, the reeds of the eternal fields, and the whispered secrets of those kings and queens who once ruled as gods over the shimmering sands of Egypt. Good night. But before we close, let's take a closer look at perhaps the most iconic of them all, Ramses II, better known as Ramses the Great. Ascending the throne in 1279 BCE, Ramses ruled for an astonishing 66 years, one of the longest reigns in Egyptian history. His time in power marked a golden age of prosperity and monumental ambition. He launched an enormous building program, raising temples, obelisks, and colossal statues that proclaimed his glory to the world. These monuments, carved in stone, were designed to awe his people and secure his place in eternity. Yet Ramses' hunger for immortality and power seemed endless. He fathered more than 100 children through an immense harem of wives and concubines. He was unafraid to erase the past, chiseling away the names and images of earlier rulers to replace them with his own. Even the towering statues he built of himself, some soaring over 80 feet high, were not just works of art, but bold declarations of his divine status, monuments to a ruler who refused to be forgotten. Perhaps the most unsettling part of Ramses II's legacy lies in the extraordinary measures he took to prepare for eternity. His monumental mortuary temple, the Ramesseum, wasn't just a tomb. It was an entire complex supported by a city of priests, artisans, and laborers whose sole duty was to serve his cult for generations to come. No expense was spared in furnishing his eternal home. Golden chariots, elaborate furniture, carved alabaster vessels, and unimaginable treasures were packed inside. Even his beloved pet lion was mummified so it could accompany him beyond the grave. But Ramses did not stop there. Evidence from recent excavations suggests that, at the time of his death, members of his household, concubines, and attendants alike may have been ritually sacrificed to continue serving him in the afterlife. Their remains, arranged as if still standing ready to wait on their king, offer a haunting glimpse into the extremes of his godlike ambitions. It is a chilling reminder of how far Egypt's rulers were willing to go in their pursuit of immortality. Though Ramses II presided over Egypt's golden age, his empire was built on the backs of countless commoners whose labor, sweat, and even blood fueled his quest for eternal glory. And he was hardly alone. Pharaohs before and after him wielded their divine status with the same unchecked authority. Amenhotep III and Akhenaten undertook extravagant building projects for their own glorification. The boy king, Tutankhamun, was buried with treasures beyond imagination. Cleopatra, centuries later, secured her throne by ruthlessly eliminating her own siblings. Time and again, Egypt's rulers proved that their supposed divinity placed them above the laws and morals that governed ordinary people. They could rewrite religion on a whim, take countless partners, seize land and wealth, and even sanctify murder, all under the guise of divine will. To them, megalomania wasn't just tolerated, it was expected, even justified by the promise of an eternal afterlife. But in the end, the lesson is always the same. No matter how powerful, no matter how ambitious, no pharaoh could escape death. For all their temples, tombs, sacred rituals, and sacrificial offerings, their bodies still crumbled into dust. Their treasures lay buried in silence, and their gods faded into a new forgotten myth. The mightiest rulers of Egypt met the same fate as the humblest farmer, proof that mortality is the great equalizer of all. It's a humbling story, one that still resonates in today's world of self-styled strongmen and would-be demigods. The pharaohs remind us that even those who believe themselves untouchable eventually fall, their grandeur consumed by time, and their names reduced to echoes. As we close this journey through the dazzling yet disturbing lives of Egypt's god-kings, we're left with a sense of awe and unease. We've uncovered treasures, pieced together secrets, and glimpsed both the brilliance and the brutality of a civilization unlike any other. And yet, so much remains hidden beneath the sands. Perhaps future discoveries will reveal even more about the shadows behind the pharaoh's shining reigns, and what truly drove these divine rulers to such astonishing heights of power and such chilling depths of obsession. Until then, the pharaohs will continue to haunt our imaginations, spectacular, sphinx-like, wrapped in gold and mystery. We can only wonder what chilling secrets still lie buried in the Valley of the Kings, waiting for the desert winds to reveal them. Tales of tyrants and god-kings, long faded to dust, yet etched into eternity, remind us that even the grandest of empires and most exalted rulers cannot outrun the relentless march of time. So, as we drift towards sleep, with our minds filled with gilded sarcophagi and whispering spirits, we might reflect on the enduring fascination of these ancient royals, divine, decadent, and undone by their own towering egos. And perhaps we can be thankful that such rulers will never walk among us again. When morning came in ancient Egypt, the pharaoh would rise to begin his daily routine, a blend of ceremony, governance, and sacred duty. His first act was purification, either bathing in a sacred pool or being cleansed by priests with holy water. This ritual wasn't just about hygiene. It was believed to purify both body and spirit, preparing him to act as a living god. Next, the pharaoh was dressed in the finest linen, adorned with the double crown, the crook, and the flail. Each symbol carried profound meaning. The crook marked him as shepherd of his people, the flail as the enforcer of justice and authority. Even these seemingly ordinary acts were steeped in cosmic importance. Every motion, every gesture, followed the strict laws of Ma'at, the divine order that held the universe together. To falter was to invite chaos and risk the wrath of the gods themselves. Once clothed in his divine regalia, the pharaoh would emerge to begin his public duties. His day often began at the temple, where he served not only as ruler, but as high priest of the entire kingdom. It was his responsibility to honor the gods, to recite sacred prayers, burn incense, and present offerings. These rituals, however repetitive or exacting, had to be performed with flawless precision. To the Egyptians, they weren't empty gestures. They were acts that kept the universe itself in balance. After ensuring divine favor, the pharaoh turned to the affairs of state. He met with his viziers, the trusted officials who acted as his eyes and ears across Egypt. They reported on matters of politics, agriculture, trade, and foreign relations, from the Nubians to the Hittites, from the bustling Mediterranean ports to the rival powers of Mesopotamia. Through these meetings, The pharaoh shaped the destiny of his empire, one decision at a time. The pharaoh would spend part of his day hearing petitions from his people, settling disputes, and issuing judgments in accordance with Mayat, the sacred principle of truth, balance, and justice. While the viziers and officials managed much of the state bureaucracy on a daily basis, the final word always rested with the pharaoh. He was expected not only to govern wisely, but also to embody divine justice itself. Yet such immense, unchecked authority carried dangerous temptations. With no limits on his power, a pharaoh could easily slip into corruption or tyranny. Some rulers imposed crushing taxes and conscripted their people into forced labor, all to fund their extravagant building projects. Others, consumed by paranoia, unleashed brutal purges against anyone they saw as a potential rival. One infamous ruler, Psamtik IV, even ordered the execution of his own mother and brother in order to secure the throne. In the palace, the bonds of family could be as deadly as any battlefield. Still, the pharaoh's life was not entirely filled with blood and burdens. He was also entitled to enjoy the greatest luxuries and pastimes of his age. Hunting expeditions into the desert were a favorite pursuit. Driving his war chariot at full speed, the pharaoh loosed arrows at lions, antelope, and gazelles fleeing across the sands. These hunts were more than sport. They symbolized his eternal struggle to subdue the forces of chaos that threatened Egypt. Each successful kill was proof of his strength, vitality, and divine right to rule. At other times, he might indulge in a quieter form of entertainment, such as playing a game of Senet with one of his courtiers. This ancient board game was beloved by Egypt's elite, but it also carried spiritual meaning. The movement of the pieces across the board was believed to echo the soul's journey through the Duat, the underworld, with the final squares representing the gates of eternal life. Even in play, the pharaoh was reminded that his earthly existence was bound to the mysteries of eternity. As the sun god Ra completed his fiery voyage across the sky and dusk descended over the Nile, the pharaoh would withdraw to his private chambers. Surrounded by luxury, music, and the scents of incense and wine, he finally took his rest. Yet even in sleep, his divine obligations never truly ceased. For to the Egyptians, their ruler was not merely a man, but the living bridge between mortals and gods. And so we come to the end of our journey through the golden sands and shadowed tombs of ancient Egypt. The pharaohs ruled with absolute power, living as gods among mortals, yet bound by the same fate that awaits us all. Their monuments still tower above the desert, their treasures still gleam in museum halls, and their mysteries continue to whisper through the ages. If you enjoyed this deep dive into their world of splendor and secrecy, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps this channel keep bringing history to life in new and fascinating ways. I'd also love to hear from you. Which pharaoh's story intrigued you the most, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with golden pyramids, timeless legends, and the eternal glow of history's wonders. Thanks for watching, and good night.